going to go live at the beach house down Long Beach Island because I can't take it in this house anymore. And I could understand that because it was so weird. It was so weird. It was unexplainable how weird it was. To have this menacing, sinister, ominous creature lurking in the house. So Gary, I'm sitting again like I always do on the sectional couch that I have in the living room, and this is where it really starts. So I do my meditation, and I pray for about an hour and a half, and I pray for all the souls. And like I said, that I felt that there were lost souls who died, in a way that nobody should die. And Gary, on my right between my table and there's a big wall piece there. Between there and there, it's probably about 8-9 feet of just thin air between that. So I start to see the air, Gary, starts to start rippling a little bit, and I think it is a problem with my eye, right? So I try to clear my eyes again, and it's on my right side. So now I get on the edge of the chair and I look. I'm looking straight at it, almost straight at it on the side though, and that rippling starts to turn into one giant blue wall of flame, and I say blue because I've never seen anything like that before. I've never invited this thing here, Gary. I never had a seance. I never used a Ouija board. I never used tarot cards, and I don't suggest anybody try to do that because once you do it, you allow this creature I believe, to do you harm. I mean, you're permitting it to do the work because I've heard of where creatures have hurt people. So I didn't do that, and I didn't allow this to be here. It came.
But could you have been around somebody that was possessed? And, I've read, and I've actually had guests on my show where, where they went out, with a priest to, cleanse the house, for example. When they left, they got home, and all of a sudden now that entity was, harassing them.
With them? Yeah. I could understand that, believe me. The only other time I ever had heard about somebody having a problem with demons was in my family we have this blood disease, and my dad died early from it, and my brother got the disease in his blood. He's like 40 years old, and this is only a few years ago. He gets he's starting to have a heart attack. He's a young, strong guy. He's a contractor, good-looking contractor guy, and he starts to get the same kind of thing my dad had. He has a heart attack. They rush him to the hospital. He dies on the hospital bed. This is the only other time I heard of anything about it, that I could believe anybody would tell me this. It wouldn't lie to me. He said, Johnny, when I went to go visit him that night, he dies on the hospital bed. He said, Johnny, when I died, I left my body. I saw the nurses and the doctors frantically with defibrillators, and alarms are going off, and they were putting things in my veins, and they were putting the defibrillator on your chest. They were frantically trying to get me back to life. But in the meantime, he said, while I was standing there, from the dark corner of this room, which I believe is the fifth dimension again, he said, demons came for me. He said, why did demons come for me? He said, demons came for me. They came and they started grabbing me, and they started dragging me into that dark corner. But in the meantime, he was still watching. He was trying not to go, but he was going, no matter how hard he was trying not to go. But the doctors and the nurses were still trying to get him back, but they finally get him back to life. And he says, that's when they released me. That's when I went back into my body. And that's when he said, I never heard of anything like this before. He says to me, why did demons come for me? And I'm like, I didn't have an answer for that either. I don't know, why did demons come for me? I'm not sure. I mean, we're all brought up in our religion, but I know he left his religion about 20 years ago. He stopped having his relationship with God. He lived with a woman. He had kids. He never gave them a religion. I would say to him, Paul, did you ever, any of your kids even recite one prayer? They don't even have a religion. And he was like, no, I guess they can't. He's a completely different man now. But that was the only other time I ever heard about something like this. You know what I mean? That I ever had to deal with something like this. So like I said, there's a whole wall of blue flames there. So I'm a little bit in shock about this. And I'm looking at it, and I'm at the edge of my seat now. And I see now, from these blue flames, I start seeing what I thought at the time looked like coral coming through slowly, Gary, coming through these flames very slowly. So I'm looking at coral that was like probably 1 to 2 feet, 2.5 feet of this coral that looked like it's first coming through very slowly. And then I start seeing this creature. But what I want to ask you is, what I want to tell you is this: have you ever gone to a board meeting, Gary, and you're waiting for the CEO to arrive, and all the subordinates go in, and they're fixing their ties, and they're getting their notes together, and they're ready, and they're nervous, and they're waiting for the CEO. And when the CEO comes in on his own time, he owns that room when he comes in there. He comes in when he feels like it. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
No, but I used to know a CEO that actually had a big mirror in the wall, and everybody thought it was just a mirror, and he would actually go into the meeting about 5 minutes late just to watch them all squirm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's how this creature he came in like he owned the place. He didn't when you see on TV, you see every time you see something like this happening on TV, there's lightning and there's wind and there's chairs flying around, there's animal noises. This creature, like I said, was intelligent and powerful. It didn't want me to scare me to run out of the house. It's coming for a reason. It was coming in to give me its messages that it wanted to give me, and it's coming in for a reason. So it didn't want to scare me out of the house. So it comes in. So I see its full head now, but it stops right up to its neck. So only its head comes through, and I kind of can see that it can't. I believe it can't go any further. I'm thinking that. Thank God for that, because I don't know what I would do if it came all the way through. It seemed like, and Gary, when all the stories we hear about, angels were created in heaven, and then like a third of them became evil, and they got kicked out of heaven, and like these demons convinced a third of them to follow them into hell somewhere. And I was thinking to myself, well, if they're in hell, what are they doing roaming the earth? But this creature that was here, it brought its hell with them. It was still in hell and here too, and breaking this fifth dimension. Like it had the power. It had the power to manipulate a fifth dimension. That's some kind of technology we'll never have. There's no way we're ever going to have that kind of a technology. This thing is so powerful. It had the technology to create a dimension, to come through and to perceive what it was going to do. And so it comes up all the way up to its head. So I see its full head and full face. You could go, if you went to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, you could see what I saw, because I'm an artist. I burnt that image into my head the whole time it was here. So I see this, its top of his head looked like a shell or like a horseshoe crab. It was like that kind of thing. That's where all these horns and stuff were coming out of. His face, like there's so many unfathomable things that happened. Like this creature had a face, and it not like skin and bone, I guess. It had a face. How did it have I was thinking in my mind, how does this have a face and this blue raging fire and not be burnt? That's, like I would think if it was flesh, it would be burnt, but it was nothing wrong with his face, really. This blue fire, I couldn't hear it. I couldn't see any smoke coming off of it, and I couldn't see what was burning it, So I began to realize that this is his chastisement that's going to be there forever. I believe it's God's burning detestation for sin, and that's what this creature lives in, and that's what it's going to live in for eternity. So now I'm beginning to understand what's going on. I see the full head of it. I see all these horns coming out of its head. Its face looked like it wasn't being burnt by this fire. I was constantly, the first thing, like it said words, and it chose his words with fastidious care. Like it wasn't going to have a conversation with me, and I wasn't going to have a conversation back with it. It was here just to tell me a couple things that I didn't like. And one of them, he said, the words that he said, like it was like confrontation. It was like right in my face, Gary. Like when two men talk together, they kind of talk on an angle. They don't talk right in each other's face like that. But when I got up, because I wanted to move away from it, I got up and I was a few feet away from that blue wall of flame. And when his face came out, it just looked me straight in the eyes. Confrontational, as much as you could possibly be confrontational. And it just had black eyes. It didn't have like pupils. You could see in that picture that I drew of it. It just had black eyes. But its mouth actually moved. But when it said, the first thing it said to me was "no more," like that, "no more." So, but when because it was so confrontation, I was looking at every inch of its head and its mouth. The words weren't like exactly when you look at somebody and they're talking, you can almost see their mouth move and saying the words that you understand. This was whatever language it spoke, it was able to convey that to me in English. So I sort of was thinking to myself, I didn't want to ask him what it meant. So I just thinking of it, no more. What does it mean? No more praying? Don't pray? Then I think, it's got to be no more praying for these souls, because these souls that are supposed to be coming in his direction, he doesn't want anybody to interfere with that. They're supposed to go where they're supposed to go, and there's nobody. He wants all of them, and I don't know why he wants all these souls. I mean, we heard, that's because he wants to get even with God or hurt God. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Most of these questions that I think about are unfathomable because there's no real answer for them. So I got that. And so I didn't say anything. I just I was thinking to myself, if I make it through this thing, I'm going to memorize every single thing and memorize that face and memorize everything that it said to me in this fire. So I was looking at this fire a lot because it just was staring at me straight in the eye. And because I was looking at the fire, he said that only your spirit will feel the effects of this type of a fire. So then I thought to myself, that makes a lot of sense, because that fire was like a miracle in itself. Like we have fire in this fourth dimension, and it's a miracle in itself. If you think about it, it heats us in the winter. You cook food with it. You could forge two different steels together, and that third steel becomes even more stronger than the steels that you forge it together with. That's kind of a miracle in itself. This was a miracle of chastisement. I couldn't see anything what it was burning. Like there was, and I guess nobody in hell would put more flame and more. If it was wood, nobody's going to put more wood on it so they could suffer more. So this thing was just burning from, like I said, it's God's burning detestation for sin, and it just burnt on its own. It didn't give off any smoke. It didn't look like it was burning any fuel. It didn't smell like anything. And then I realized when he said, this is only going to affect your spirit, that what it's going to do is just affect your spirit. I could understand that now. And that it didn't want me to interfere with anything that's coming its way. And then I try to tell people, this thing was 100% hatred, not 99.9. It was 100% hatred. And like I said earlier, it owned it. I don't know if I tell you, like if you came to visit me in a prison, and I was there, they put me in there for life, and I didn't do the crime. If you came, or Gary, if anybody came, the first thing I would say is I don't belong here. Get me out of here. I don't belong in this place. I didn't do this crime. But this creature, it never did anything like that. It owned it. For him, this giant blue wall of flame that it exists in, it seemed to be just for him, if he could understand that. For him, it was just. Whatever he did, whatever happens between him and the Creator, he believes that this is what he deserves and what he's going to get. So that was another thing that I began to realize.
Now, hey, John, I can give you about another 15 minutes by manipulating around, but I got to do a little bumper thing here. So do you want to hang on for about 2 minutes?
Okay, great. I want to tell you what happened when he left, too.
Okay, so I'm going to put you hold for 2 minutes, and we'll be back.